Hello and welcome to a new bedtime adventure. Tonight, we'll follow Benny the bear on a journey away from his peaceful forest home to a magical place he's never been before, Dreamy Town, where his cousin Lulu lives. Benny discovers that even though Dreamy Town is different, it feels just like home in all the ways that matter. So snuggle in, get cozy, and let's begin. In a quiet corner of a green, whispering forest, there stood a small wooden cottage with a red chimney and flower boxes on the windows. Inside, Benny the bear cub was already awake, even though the sun had just started to rise. Today was a special day. Benny the little bear cub had never been so excited. That morning, sunlight poured through the leaves of the forest trees, casting golden puddles across his wooden bedroom floor. Birds chirped from the branches just outside his window, and a soft breeze rustled the curtains. He blinked sleepily, then suddenly remembered what day it was. Today was the day of his first big trip. He was going to visit his cousin Lulu the bunny, who lived in a faraway place called Dreamy Town. Benny sat up in bed so fast that his blanket flew off in a heap. Dreamy Town! I'm going to Dreamy Town, he cheered, his little heart thumping with joy. He hopped out of bed and pulled on his soft blue hoodie with the tiny bear ears on the hood. He tugged the zipper up to his chin and gave himself a determined nod in the mirror. I'm ready for an adventure, he whispered to himself, his round eyes gleaming. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of warm oats and sweet forest berries. His grandma bear stood at the stove, gently stirring a big pot of porridge with a wooden spoon. She was wearing her favorite cozy robe with stars stitched on the sleeves. I couldn't sleep a minute longer, Benny exclaimed as he ran to her and wrapped his arms around her waist. His grandma chuckled and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Me neither, my little explorer. I've been thinking about this trip all night. Are you ready for our big adventure? Benny's eyes sparkled. So ready. Grandma, what's Dreamy Town like again? Do the buildings really touch the sky? Is there music in the streets? And does Lulu still have her bubble collection? Grandma Bear laughed softly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. You'll see it all soon, sweetheart. But first, she handed him a bowl of porridge drizzled with honey. We need a warm, filling breakfast. Traveling is much easier on a happy tummy. Soon, Grandpa Bear and Benny's parents joined them at the table, and the cozy cabin was filled with laughter and chatter. They all talked about how proud they were of Benny for going on his first big trip. I packed your favorite snacks, his mom whispered as she adjusted the straps on his backpack. And I added a tiny notebook for you to draw or write in, said Grandpa Bear with a wink. Every adventurer needs one. After breakfast, it was time to go. Benny hugged his parents and Grandpa tightly. I'll tell you everything when I come back. They waved from the porch as Benny and Grandma Bear walked hand in paw down the winding forest path. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, as if they were wishing Benny good luck. They reached a small clearing at the edge of the woods, just as the Dreamy bus came gliding in. It was a shiny blue bus with silver swirls painted along the sides, and its wheels made the softest humming sound. With a gentle whoosh, the doors opened. Benny held Grandma's paw tightly as they climbed aboard. His paws trembled just a little, but mostly from excitement. The bus was cozy inside, with soft cushioned seats and little potted flowers by the windows. Benny chose the seat right next to the window and placed his backpack carefully at his feet. He pressed his nose to the glass. As the bus pulled away from the forest, Benny's eyes widened with wonder. At first, there were just trees and flowers and babbling brooks, things Benny knew so well. But soon the scenery began to change. The winding dirt path turned into smooth roads lined with cobblestone. Tiny gardens peeked out from behind fences. Mailboxes were painted in bright rainbow colors. Benny saw a pink mailbox shaped like a cupcake and a blue one with a rocket ship on top. Animals of all kinds walked down the sidewalks. A pair of chipmunks in polka-dot raincoats strolled by, sharing an umbrella even though it wasn't raining. A panda zoomed past on a scooter with a backpack full of books. Look, Grandma, Benny pointed. It's just like a storybook. It really is, Grandma Bear smiled. As they neared Dreamy Town, Benny's excitement grew and grew. The buildings grew taller. They shimmered like glass towers in the sunlight. There were balconies filled with flowers, music playing softly from windows, and the air smelled of cinnamon buns and warm bread. When the bus gently rolled into the main square, Benny could hardly believe his eyes. It was like stepping into a dream. He stepped off the bus slowly, his little mouth open in awe. The buildings glowed in shades of peach, gold, and sky blue. Colorful flags waved between rooftops. Street musicians played cheerful tunes on violins and flutes. Benny's heart thudded with joy. And then he heard a shout. "Benny!" He turned just in time to see a bouncing blur of white fluff racing toward him. It was Lulu the bunny, her long ears flopping with each joyful hop. Her pink backpack bobbed on her back, and her feet barely touched the ground. Behind her came Aunt Maple, smiling warmly and carrying a big tote bag full of books and flowers. "Lulu!" Benny called out, running forward. They met in a happy hug that nearly knocked them both over. "I missed you so much." Benny laughed. "I missed you more." Lulu giggled. "Come on, I have so much to show you." Aunt Maple gave Benny and Grandma Bear a hug too. "Welcome to Dreamy Town. Let's go home first so Benny can drop off his things." They walked through the busy streets together. Benny looked everywhere at once. There was a squirrel painting a mural on a wall. A pair of flamingos danced to music by a bus stop. A hedgehog in roller skates zoomed past with a baguette under each arm. Soon they reached Lulu's apartment building. It had shiny silver doors and leafy green vines curling up the sides. Inside, Benny gasped. The lobby had big clay pots filled with bright flowers and tiny twinkling fairy lights hanging from the ceiling. Then he heard a soft ding. The elevator doors opened, and Benny's eyes grew even wider. "Is that an elevator?" "It sure is." Lulu grinned. "Come on." They stepped inside and were greeted by soft music that made their feet tap. Benny giggled as he and Lulu spun in little circles. Even Grandma Bear swayed gently to the music. Up they went. When the doors opened again, they stepped into a hallway with squishy carpet and cheerful paintings on the walls. Lulu's door had a little wreath made of daisies and buttons. Her apartment smelled of lavender and vanilla. There were soft rugs, cozy blankets, and shelves filled with books, snow globes, and stuffed animals. By the big window stood Lulu's bubble collection. Over 30 shiny bottles with glittery labels and twisty wands. "You still have them?" Benny said in awe. "Of course I do. We're gonna blow some later," Lulu whispered. After washing their paws and freshening up, they were ready to explore the town. Lulu handed Benny a colorful city map. "First stop, my favorite food shop." The deli was tucked on a street corner, with a striped awning and a bell that jingled when they opened the door. Benny's nose twitched with delight. There were jars of jam, stacks of bread, and baskets full of cloudberries, giggle grapes, and sun-dried apples. A kind raccoon behind the counter greeted them. "I don't even know where to start," Benny whispered, staring at a menu filled with names like Twinkle Toast, Moonbeam Muffins, and Cloud Dip Wraps. "Try a honeyberry wrap with cloud dip," Aunt Maple suggested. "Yes, please." Benny beamed. They sat outside on a little patio. Birds chirped above them, and a band of turtles in tiny caps marched by, humming a tune. 2 owls sat on a bench, flipping pages of their books. Benny took a bite and sighed happily. "This is the tastiest thing ever. And we've only just begun," Lulu whispered with a twinkle in her eyes. Benny wandered slowly through the gift shop, his little paw gently brushing the edges of shelves and baskets. The shop was filled with the soft hum of music and the gentle chime of wind bells swaying by the window. It smelled of books, peppermint candy, and just a hint of cinnamon. Everywhere Benny looked, there were treasures. Colorful pencils shaped like carrots, hand-painted picture frames, plush toys of all shapes and sizes, tiny jars of stardust, and snow globes with miniature scenes of Dreamy Town tucked inside. He paused at a shelf filled with pretty boxes and shiny tins. His eyes lit up. "Ooh, this one," he whispered. Inside a round little tin was forest tea, the kind his mom loved to sip by the fire. The label even had a picture of a sleepy bear curled up with a cup and a book. Benny grinned and tucked it into his basket. For his dad, he found a big forest green mug that had "Best Bear Ever" written in curly letters. It was heavy and sturdy, perfect for hot chocolate or warm cider. And for Grandma, Benny found something extra special. A soft green bookmark shaped like a leafy sprig, with tiny embroidered stars along the edge. It reminded him of their bedtime reading together. As he padded down the next aisle, his eyes caught a burst of color on the very bottom shelf. His breath caught. It was a t-shirt, folded neatly, with a picture of Dreamy Town at sunset. The sky on it melted from orange to pink to violet, with twinkling stars just beginning to peek out. The little houses glowed with golden light, and in the corner was a tiny bunny and a tiny bear sitting side by side. "It's perfect," Benny whispered to himself. "Lulu will love this." Just as he reached the counter, he spotted Lulu hopping toward him with a wide grin and a paper bag tucked behind her back. They both giggled and held out their gifts. "I got something for you," they said at the exact same time. They blinked in surprise, then burst into laughter again. Together they unwrapped their bags and gasped. Inside each bag was the same sunset t-shirt with Dreamy Town glowing under the stars. For a moment they just stared at each other. And then they both laughed and laughed until their tummies hurt. "We are the same kind of silly," Lulu said between giggles. "I wouldn't want to be any other way," Benny replied happily. By the time they got back to Lulu's apartment, the sky outside was turning a deeper shade of blue, and the very first stars were beginning to twinkle above the rooftops. Benny let out a soft yawn and rubbed his eyes. Aunt Maple smiled gently. "Looks like we've got two sleepy explorers." She pulled out her phone. "Let's order something warm and cozy to eat." Benny's ears perked up. "Wait, you can order food and it comes right to the door?" Lulu nodded proudly. "Welcome to Dreamy Town." Benny shook his head in awe. "That's the most magical thing I've ever heard." While they waited for the food to arrive, Aunt Maple ran a warm lavender bubble bath for Benny, just like the ones Grandma made at home. She even used the same kind of fluffy white towel and bubble drops that smelled like sleepy meadows and wildflowers. Benny stepped into the warm water and let out a happy sigh. The bubbles rose around him, soft and silky, and he leaned back with his eyes closed. The gentle smell of lavender made him feel like he was right back in the forest, safe and warm and loved. He smiled to himself. "I think I like Dreamy Town," he whispered softly, as the bubbles sparkled in the glow of the bathroom lights.